Okay, what is a strategy? Susie, what's a strategy? A plan! And I heard a plan over there from the guy in the toque. He's talking now, watch out. Look out. Okay, so a strategy is a plan. Yeah, so it's like having a little plan about how you're going to do something, right? How are we going to make this work? Yep. So, what are some strategies that you use when you're reading? We all have them, whether we know it or not. You have something you're doing when you're reading. What do you do?
Like when I'm reading something in
Yeah.
English, which is not my native language,
Right.
I always use pencil, line the words which I know.
Excellent. Yeah, so pencil or making notes. Making notes while reading. This is huge. And person in the toque, how does that help you when you're reading through and you see a word you don't know and you just underline it? How does that help you?
So first time I try to understand the meaning of the word.
Okay.
And after I finish the paragraph,
Yeah.
if I cannot understand all the meaning, I go back to
Okay, so what you're telling me is one strategy you use is you try looking at the whole context or the whole situation of the paragraph.
Exactly.
Then you go back and look at those underlined words, and then sometimes you'll know what they mean. But if you don't,
Even if I know what they mean, I have to know what the words says.
Okay.
Exactly.
so do you stop your reading right there, go and get your phone or your No?
I have to finish first. If I go to Google it, then I back, it's gonna get.
You're lost.
I'm lost.
This is a strategy. This is a really good strategy. Even if English is your first language and you're reading a text and you come to words that you don't understand, just underline them for now, put a little question mark there. Don't stop your reading because you will not, like the person said, you will not get back into it. It's really hard to stay with the meaning of the text if you're always going to look up words.
It's like when you are watching a movie, then they stop it, they got the announcement, so they back to the movie, you forgot the movie stop.
Yeah.
You refer the movie back in time.
Yeah. So it can be really hard if you stop yourself too much. So making notes, so not just underlining, so underlining unknown words. So that's huge. But what else? What else can you do with your notes while you're reading if you don't understand something? Or if you do understand something?
Well, sometimes if, let's say you don't know a word and you keep reading,
It comes to you.
yes,
Yeah, like Sally
then
saying.
you will know
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
they mean.
But what I'm talking about is like when you're reading, if you agree with something that you read, even just writing I agree beside it or in the column. So if you've been in my class before, I call this talking to the text. Talking to the text is an amazing strategy for understanding what you're reading because that means your brain is actively involved with what you're reading and afterwards you're going to remember it much better. You don't have to have a separate notebook and be taking notes, but underlining, circling, and saying stuff like, oh, I agree, next to something that you read, you will remember with what you agreed with much better than if you just keep reading, right? So talking to the text with your pencil is huge. Yeah. What else? Any other strategies Any other strategies that people use?
Reflecting on what I'm reading.
Okay, so how do you do that? Do you do it before? Do you do it after? When do you do it?
I usually, after reading like a paragraph, I'll just like reflect on it.
Okay. Do you write stuff down?
No.
Okay. You
Just
don't?
Make connections or whatever.
Yeah, make connections. Okay, yep, thank you. So making connections, yeah, it's okay if you don't always write it down. It might take forever to read, but you think to yourself, how did that work for me? Or, oh, actually that happened to me before, right? Making connections is a huge reading strategy. If we can't connect to a text, it's really hard to understand it. Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? So making connections, talking to the text, what else? Okay, so just like the writing process, there's a reading process. We talk about pre-reading, during reading, and after reading. So if you look at the strategies we've talked about so far, where would they fit in? Talking to the text, underlining, reflecting on what you just read. During, yeah, these are all things we would do during reading. After reading too, we might make connections and connect with the text a little bit. what are some things we can do before we read an article or a story to help us understand what we're about to read? Predict. And stage 2, you guys are going to be so tired of that word by the end of these 2 weeks. Predict. What does it mean to predict? To guess, yeah. So before you even begin reading, you look at the title, you look at the pictures, you look at anything on there, and you start making guesses about what you're going to read. Is it okay if when you start reading those guesses are wrong?
Yes.
Sure.
Totally okay. It's not a test. It's totally okay. If you make guesses and they're totally wrong, that's okay. What this does is it gets your brain ready for reading. Then when you come across something and you're wrong about your prediction, you'll be like, oh, I was wrong. And then you'll remember it much better, right? Yeah. So that's something we can do pre-reading. Anything else pre-reading? He mentioned something about how you can find a good book.
Well, you can look in the back.
Yes.
On the back of the book to see if.
Yeah, we call that little thing the blurb, the back of the book, to see what it's going to be about, for sure. So all of this is a part of these 2 things. Skimming and scanning. Yeah. So when we skim and scan a book or an article or a piece of text, it gives us a good idea about what it's going to be about and whether or not we're interested in it, right? It's really important to do these things before reading if you want to understand what you're reading.
What's mean skimming?
What's that?
What's mean skimming?
Skimming?
No, yeah,
Scanning?
no, the first one.
The first one, skimming. Yeah. Anybody want to give the definition of skimming?
You can just, let's say you have a page and you kind of just look it over quick, like.
You don't
Okay.
read it carefully,
Don't
you
read
just look it over
something.
quickly, so you have an idea what it talks about, but not.
So skim reading, so if you think of it, think of this. You're a chef, right? So you have fresh milk straight from the cow, right? You put that milk, you don't get that treat very much in Canada, but I'm sure you do in Algeria. You put that milk in the fridge and you let it sit and the cream rises to the top, right?
Yeah.
You're skimming that milk, that cream off the top. So that's what you're doing when you're looking over a piece of text. You're just picking out the cream, reading the topic sentences, looking at the headings, that kind of thing. Yep.
It would be just like if you look at a recipe, you might not look the amounts, just look quick over.
Yeah. Do I want to make this?
Some of the ingredients.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Any other strategies? So this is what we're going to be talking about. So this week, stage 3, you guys are going to start writing summaries, talking about writing summaries. And these are all things that you'll want to do before you actually read the piece of writing that you're going to write a summary for, to really help you understand and to really see if that's something you want to use for your assignment. Okay? I like what he said. Sometimes people like this in this class and sometimes they don't. I like what he said about people. They did a survey with children. You guys aren't children, but he was talking about children. If they're allowed to choose what they want to read, their understanding will be a lot better of what they're reading. It's the same with us as adults. Like if we're allowed to choose the things we want to read, that can be good. Sometimes adults are though, they're like, Jamie, just tell me what to read and I'll read it. But no, it's better if you choose what you want to read because you're going to understand it better. Yeah. Okay, so